My dad blew my college savings on his new wife. I exposed her scheme. Now they're drowning in debt. My name's Jason. I'm 23. And honestly, at this point, all I can do is sit back and watch as my dad, Greg, 45, decided my future was less important than his new wife, Vanessa, 32. Yeah, classic case. Middle-aged dad, midlife crisis in full swing, and here comes this woman who's perfected the art of draining every cent he's got. It's like I'm living in a bad movie. You'd think he'd have some self-awareness, but no. He's so wrapped up in this whirlwind romance that he's blind to anything that doesn't sparkle on her finger or hang off her wrist. Back when I was younger, my mom, dad, and I were like a team. We had our rough patches, sure, but my mom was always there to keep us together. She was the one who actually invested in me, believed in me, and in some ways, laid the foundation for my future. Every big dream, every little milestone. She was there, cheering me on, giving me the support I needed. But then she was gone. And when she left, a part of Dad seemed to disappear with her. He spiraled, sank into his own issues, and later announced in this detached, almost scripted tone that it was time for a fresh start. Great. Only his fresh start didn't include the college fund he'd promised me. It didn't include me at all, really. When Vanessa appeared, all my savings practically evaporated. You know how it goes. One day you wake up and the money you saved for college just vanishes into thin air. That's exactly what happened. I'd been avoiding checking my account because there was always that little voice in my head saying, "It's fine, you're overthinking it." But something didn't sit right, so I finally did. I logged in, scanned my balance, and nothing. Just an empty number staring back at me. At first, I thought maybe I'd made a mistake. Maybe it was some glitch. But no. Every cent I'd saved was gone. "Hey, Dad, where'd my money go?" I asked as calmly as I could, though honestly, every muscle in my body wanted to yell, to make him realize how serious this was. He just shrugged like it was nothing, like he hadn't just thrown away my dreams. "Don't worry, son. I've got it all under control," he said with this bizarre calmness, as if he were trying to convince me that this wasn't an issue. Maybe if he were a better actor, but he came off so fake that I instantly knew something was wrong. Then Vanessa walked in. She acted like she owned the world, decked out in jewelry that didn't come from nowhere. Turns out that was my college fund, all invested in their new future. It was surreal. I couldn't believe the level of disregard. She strolled in with that smug smile, cooing about a new chapter, a new life, as if I were some character in the background of their story. And in that moment, I realized something painful. To him, her comfort mattered more than mine. I didn't have a role in this new chapter of his, and I definitely didn't have a place in their shiny, happy future. It's strange how fast things can change, how quickly you can feel like a stranger in your own life. My name's Jason. I'm 23. And honestly, at this point, all I can do is sit back and watch as my dad, Greg, 45, decided my future was less important than his new wife, Vanessa, 32. Yeah, classic case. Middle-aged dad, midlife crisis in full swing. And here comes this woman who's perfected the art of draining every cent he's got. I mean, I get it. She's charming, she's young, and I guess she gives him that illusion of living some second life. But it's like watching him hand over everything that used to mean something to our family. It wasn't always like this. Back when I was younger, my mom, dad, and I were a team. My mom was my rock, the one who would stay up late with me when I had a big test, who drove me to every soccer game, who made me feel like I could be somebody. She was the one who invested in me, believed in me, and in some ways, laid the foundation for my future. She was everything I thought a parent should be, and Dad was there too. Back then, at least. He was the type who showed up, clapped at the right times, and shared a few proud moments with us. But then she was gone. I think losing her did something to him, broke something in him that he was never able to piece back together. Dad went from the guy who would laugh at my mom's lame jokes to someone who barely spoke. He threw himself into work, sank into his own issues, and became a stranger in his own home. For a while, I thought he was just going through a phase, and that eventually he'd come back to us, maybe even get back to being that dad I remembered. But no, one day, he just announced that it was time for a fresh start, like we could just pack up the past and pretend everything was fine. Fresh start became his mantra, the thing he clung to like it was a life raft. Except it wasn't saving him. It was sinking him, and me along with him. When he met Vanessa, I could already see the storm coming. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. At first, I tried to be supportive, even told myself she might be good for him, maybe help him open up again. But as time went on, it became painfully clear that her idea of helping him involved his credit cards and bank accounts more than anything else. All my savings practically evaporated. You know how it goes. One day you wake up and the money you saved for college just vanishes. I had dreams, plans, things I wanted to accomplish, and it all hinged on that money. That's exactly what happened. I'll never forget that moment. I'd been avoiding checking my account for weeks, but I couldn't shake this feeling that something was wrong. I logged in, heart pounding, hoping I was just overreacting. But when I saw the balance, I felt my stomach drop. It was empty. Just an empty number staring back at me, mocking me. At first I thought maybe I'd made a mistake. Maybe it was some glitch, so I refreshed the page, logged out and logged back in again, like I could somehow will the numbers back. But no, every cent I'd saved was gone. It was like a punch to the gut. "Hey, Dad, where'd my money go?" I asked as calmly as I could, though every muscle in my body wanted to scream, to make him understand what he'd done. He just shrugged like it was nothing, like he hadn't just thrown away my dreams. "Don't worry, son, I've got it all under control," he said with this bizarre calmness, as if he were trying to convince me that this wasn't an issue. The way he said it, the way he looked at me, it was like he wasn't even the same person anymore. Maybe if he were a better actor, but he came off so fake, so disinterested, that I instantly knew something was wrong. And that's when Vanessa walked in. She acted like she owned the world, dressed in jewelry that definitely didn't come cheap, practically dripping in what was supposed to be my future. That was my college fund, all invested in their new future, apparently. It was surreal. I couldn't believe the level of disregard. She strolled in with that smug smile, not a care in the world, as if the whole world revolved around her. "A new chapter, a new life," she cooed, looking at my dad with this charming smile, like she was some angel sent to save him. Apparently, I didn't have a role in this new chapter of his, and I definitely didn't have a place in their shiny, happy future. In that moment, I realized something painful, something that broke me in a way I wasn't prepared for. To him, her comfort mattered more than mine. My dad, the man who once promised me the world, who said he'd always have my back, had chosen her over me. It was like I was just a part of his past that he was trying to leave behind, and she was his future. It's strange how fast things can change, how quickly you can feel like a stranger in your own life. I started to notice that Vanessa just couldn't leave my dad's wallet alone. The coincidental bills, all these expenses, it was like she was buying out the whole town with his money. Then it got interesting. I stumbled across some documents that were clearly not signed by my dad, even though his name was on them. The sloppy scrawl was all I needed to see. Inside, I was fuming, and all I could think was, "Gotcha." So I dug deeper. Turns out, Vanessa, like some pro-magician, had a closet full of debts she'd kept hidden from my dad. She wasn't just looking for comfort. She was creating it off his money without a second thought. Her sole mission seemed to be draining his account like it was her personal life goal. Well, I figured it was time for a heart-to-heart with my dad. One night, I sat him down and said, "Dad, we've got a problem, and her name's Vanessa." He looked at me like I was speaking another language. "You do realize she's forging your signature and bleeding you dry, right? She's not even hiding that she's using you, Dad." He just stared back, clueless. And guess who pops up at that exact moment? Miss I'll explain everything, Vanessa. She comes in and puts on a show. "Greg, just look at your son. He's jealous. He can't stand that you're finally happy. He just doesn't like that I'm in your life." I stood there watching her act the poor, innocent victim, amazed at how effortlessly she pulled it off. And yeah, my dad bought it. He turned to me and said, "You just don't understand. Vanessa cares about me, and you should learn to respect that." Really? She cares about him? That's when I realized. In his eyes, I was now the villain, the one trying to tear apart his happiness. So here's when it hit soap opera level, minus any happy ending. I thought Vanessa had already taken everything she could. My money, his respect, and the last shred of his common sense. But no. She decided the final touch in her drama was kicking me out of the house so I'd stop poisoning the atmosphere. Here's how that went. My dad comes up to me, all serious, like he's giving a business presentation, and says, "Jason, I think Vanessa and I need some space to work things out." Or more accurately, she needed space without me so she could keep playing her game. He wrapped up his speech with something like, "Maybe you can stay with some friends." Okay, I wasn't expecting that. But if that's how he wanted to play it, fine. So now I'm crashing on Alex's couch, and let's just say the couch sucks. My back hurts, there's a spring sticking into my side, and every hour I'm reminded that my life is totally off track. The whole night I tossed and turned, thinking, what a twist. I'm out of my own house, and my college fund went to buy Vanessa a Gucci bag. Nice. The longer I thought about it, the clearer it became. I wasn't going to be the dutiful son anymore. If I'd been holding back before, now it was pure, concentrated anger. This woman needed to be stopped. If she could twist my dad around her finger so easily, how many more victims would she go through? I couldn't let her get away with this. Then it hit me. I still had an old financial report for my college savings, signed by my dad over the years, promising to leave that money alone. It was a goldmine of proof. With it, I could show that it was Vanessa's fault he was on the brink of financial ruin. She was draining him dry. This was my weapon against her. Once I got kicked out of the house, I knew I needed a plan of attack. This wasn't just about revenge, it was the investigation of the century. I set a goal, to dig up every bit of dirt on Vanessa, and believe me, there was enough for an entire laundry service. Week after week, I combed through her past like a real detective. In every document, every hint of her old scams, I kept finding proof that she wasn't just after my dad's money. She was a seasoned con artist. Turned out, my dad wasn't her first prince she'd roped in. There were other victims, each with the same story. Empty promises, sweet smiles, and then, bam, gone with their money. And honestly, I started to get a bit of twisted satisfaction from the whole process. A few weeks in, I'd gathered enough evidence not just to prove her scam. I could write a book called How to Lose Your Money and Family in 3 Easy Steps with Vanessa. But I needed a strategy, so I reached out to a lawyer. Of course, not everyone wants to work with a guy crashing on a friend's couch, but I found one attorney who thought it'd be fun and a challenge. We started by going over my options, figuring out how to hit her where it hurt, both emotionally and financially. With each piece of evidence, my plan was shaping up from a vague idea into a clear strategy. I organized everything, copied documents, tied in her old debts that showed her sketchy history. Now I had a whole dossier, so solid and terrifying it could have gone straight to a crime news outlet. All I had to do was show it to my dad. But here's where I hit a wall. I knew that if everything came out, it would shatter him. He'd lose not just his sweet life, but also his dream of a new beginning. Somewhere deep down, I felt guilty for destroying what was so important to him. But what could I do? My anger and disappointment were stronger. She'd taken everything from me, and now she'd pay for it. It all led to one thing. I needed to meet my dad face to face, right in his office, on his home turf. Yeah, I had to negotiate, practically beg him for the meeting. But when he finally agreed, I knew this was the grand finale. I walked into his office with my file full of evidence, ready to lay it all out and force him to see the truth. The conversation started, and I opened the file on his desk like some detective with the evidence of the century. Dad tried to get his bearings, but the more he read, the clearer it became that his perfect Vanessa was nothing more than a skilled fraudster. At some point, he turned red. not with shame, but with rage. He looked at me with this mix of fury and hurt. "Are you serious, Jason?" he asked like I just handed him the script for a soap opera. And then she walked in. Vanessa, calm as ever, as if she'd just dropped by for a coffee break. The second she saw me and the folder, her face changed, her fake smile peeling away. She instantly started laying it on thick with my dad. "Greg, you know your son's just jealous. He's trying to ruin our life. He can't stand that you're finally happy." Really? Did she think I'd buy that? But this time, her tricks didn't work. Dad looked from the documents to her, and his face changed in an instant. Finally, he got it. He realized he'd been played all along, and I just stood there, watching as his anger, embarrassment, and disbelief clashed in one brutal revelation. Without another word, I walked out, leaving them alone with the papers and shattered trust. A few weeks after my showdown with the file, I started hearing rumors. First, random comments here and there, then hints from people who knew him. Dad was now buried in debt. Once he realized the extent of his investments in Vanessa, he saw that all he had left were sad, negative balances piling up faster than her broken promises. And guess what? Ms. I'll Save Your Life disappeared into thin air. Predictably, once the money was gone, so was she, leaving him to clean up the mess. When I found out, I had mixed feelings. Justice? Sure. But honestly, it was a bittersweet victory. I knew this was the end for him. He lost his money, his faith in people, and worst of all, he lost what was left between us. At some point, I even wondered, was it worth it? Now he was left alone to face the consequences of his choices, and my place in his life had disappeared too. On one hand, I finally felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd lifted a weight I'd been carrying for months. No more trying to protect him. He'd chosen this, and now he was paying for his blindness. But on the other hand, the cost of revenge was high. Our family was shattered, and now, looking at him, I didn't see the father I used to respect, but someone I could hardly recognize. Sitting in an old, slightly worn-out armchair, I realized that the game was over. All the revenge, the uncovering, and emotional turmoil had destroyed our family to the core. It was like I'd burned the bridge to my past, and now I was here alone, looking at the remains of what used to be a normal life. And as strange as it sounds, I finally understood that all of this was inevitable. My dad had always been too proud. He liked to think of himself as the king of life, believing his own words, never considering that someone could pull one over on him. His blind faith in his perfect life with Vanessa was exactly what led to his downfall. Well, congratulations, Greg. You made your own catastrophe. Now my goal was clear. I decided I'd rebuild my life from scratch, without any illusions or expectations of others. I'd stop relying on him or any of his promises. I'd be smarter and more careful, save for my own future. I had a plan now, and it was like a breath of fresh air. My new beginning. In that moment, a strange thought hit me. In the end, I'd won. Ever since I put together that file and showed him the facts, this whole game had been in my control. And here I was, free from the family chaos, while he sat in his financial hole, surrounded by debts and memories. So, enjoy the view, Dad. All in all, what can I say? The revenge worked, but it came at a high price. On the bright side, now I finally have my independence.